Hello, my name is Ryan Sterry. I am the agriculture agent for St. Croix County with the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension, and today we're going to be talking about selecting your youth dairy show calf. You want to start out talking about a few questions on what are your project goals. One of the first questions we can tackle is, will this be a managerial project to purchase calf, or can you select a calf from your farm or from your family's farm? Managerial projects are where the calf is borrowed from another producer. Depending on the show, sometimes this requires a formal written agreement, sometimes it can be just a handshake. Another consideration is your desired level of competition. There's a wide array of different shows you can participate in with your youth dairy calf. They include county fairs, district and state breed shows, state fairs, and even national shows. Many shows are divided into junior and open divisions. Junior divisions are open to youth competitors only, whereas open classes are open to exhibitors of all ages. Knowing your desired level of competition is going to help you decide if you're looking for a registered or a grade calf. Registered calves are officially recorded in their Chosen Breeds Association herd book, whereas grade calves do not have this registration certificate. Most of your state level and national level shows are going to require proof of registration, whereas more local shows and county fair level shows also provide grade classes. At some of these more localized shows, you can also find classes for crossbreds or any other breed. Another consideration when selecting your calf is deciding which breed or breeds you are most interested in. The Purebred Dairy Cattle Association is an excellent place to start researching the dairy breeds in North America. In North America, there are 7 major recognized breeds: the Ayrshire, Brown Swiss, Guernsey, Red and White, Holstein, Jersey, and Milking Shorthorn. When looking for a calf, it's important to consider how you're going to pair the calf with the youth that's going to be showing it. Generally speaking, within a calf's age group, a more well-grown calf is going to be an advantage in competition. This is not saying that the tallest, biggest calf is always going to win, but we do want to be looking for well-grown, growthy calves. We really want you to consider, though, what is the right size calf for the youth that's going to be showing it. And by this I mean, for some of our younger youth and more inexperienced youth, starting with the spring calf, which would be a calf that was born on or after March 1st of the show year, is going to be a more manageable size to handle versus, say, an older yearling show heifer. This position is also going to be an important consideration. Now, working with that calf is definitely going to go a long ways into calming them down and getting them ready for the show ring. But we do have to accept that some calves are unruly no matter how much we work with them. And again, for some of our younger, more inexperienced show persons, this may not be the best fit. If you're new to the dairy project, you may not be as familiar with the different lots and classes that will be discussed as you enter your calf in the fair. Here on the left-hand side, we have the different heifer classes available in one of our local fair books, and on the right-hand side, the different cow classes that are available. If we zoom in closer on the heifer lots, we can see that this show offers both registered and grade calf options. If we look on the right-hand column, we can see that the different class names, such as spring calf, winter calf, fall calf, all have birth dates associated with them. So, by definition, a spring calf is a calf that was born on or after March 1st of the current year. And we can go on down the line looking at the different heifer ages. As you can see, spring, winter, and fall calves are eligible to come back the following year as spring, winter, and fall yearlings. And this may be a consideration when looking for a show calf if you're looking for a calf that can be shown in multiple years. Summer yearlings are the exception. Those calves that are born between June 1st and August 31st are only eligible for showing as heifers in 1 year. However, that's not all bad, as oftentimes summer yearlings that calve in June the following year are often in prime condition to show in the 2-year-old cow classes. So again, I'm going to refer back to the Purebred Dairy Cattle Association, which has published their unified scorecard. So this is their guide to judges and also you when you're picking out your calf of what aspects of dairy cattle conformation are weighted more heavily in competition than others. So here we're looking at the cow scorecard and a list of 4 major categories: frame, dairy strength, rear feet and legs, and the udder. And again, we're talking about cows in this instance, so the udder is weighted much more heavily than the other traits at 40% of the total score. And this makes sense. The udder is very, very important on the mature cows for their ability to produce milk and also for their longevity within the herd. There's also a calf and heifer scorecard. Here we're looking at a version compiled by Ted Halbach, which is available on the Wisconsin 4-H Youth Dairy website. And we really wanted to point this out because obviously the big difference between cows and heifers is heifers aren't going to have an udder. So the weighting of points is going to vary quite a bit from a cow to heifer. And so here as we look at it, general appearance now becomes the most heavily weighted category, followed by dairy character, rear feet and legs, and then size. If you're not familiar with it, dairy cows have their own terminology for their anatomy, the parts of a cow. So if you're not familiar with this is a really good image to brush up on before you go out looking for a calf. So this isn't going to be a test on can you memorize all the parts of the cow. That's going to come later in your project experience. But this is good to know as you go out there because you may hear people trying to help you pick out a calf talk about certain things, that they may like this calf in the rump better than another calf, or this calf is weak in the chine, whereas another calf you're looking at may not be. If you're not familiar with those two terms, you might feel a little lost. So this is a really good image here again from the PDCA that reviews those parts of the cow, the terminology. This is really good for youth to practice learning. A lot of your showmanship questions might come from identifying parts of the cow. Most breeds are going to have their true type model of the cow as well, identifying what's ideal within that breed for each of these traits, for udder depth, for set of leg, and all those attributes. In matching the right calf with the right youth, there are many considerations that we've already talked about. Some of them might be more personality based. They're looking for that chocolate covered calf, or it's the most friendly calf in the pen, and they form that bond. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, we do want you to realize that once they walk into the show ring, they're going to be judged on their conformation. That is a key. So we also want you to consider, again, those 4 main categories of the calf and heifer scorecard: their general appearance, dairy character, feet and legs, and size. As you go to more shows and hear more judges give reasons, you might pick up on 1 or 2 things that can best be referred to as the style points. They have a long head and neck. They're straight over the top line, and that tail head sets properly between the pins. You also might notice that calves that walk level or slightly uphill may generally have an advantage over calves that have a significant downhill walk to them. Again, these are more those style points, but they really can be important when judges are splitting hairs and are trying to find the little differences in the calf to make their placing decision. Here we have still shots from the National 4-H Dairy Judging Contest at World Dairy Expo 2015. And I'd really encourage you to visit the link in this slide to see the video of these heifers. For the sake of time, we're only going to look at still shots, but I really do want to emphasize that seeing heifers on the move is just as important, if not more important. You want to look for their gait, make sure they're not favoring any foot in particular, and those types of things. So we're going to show you a couple different angles, and as we do that, we'd like you to make a few mental notes about what you may like or dislike about each heifer. And again, thinking about that in terms of the 4 general categories on the calf and heifer scorecard. So a few things to get you started off with in the general appearance category. Look at their rump structure. We want to see them long and wide throughout, with pin bones slightly lower than hip bones, throws wide apart and centrally placed. You want to look at their backs. Are they straight and strong through the loin, broad, strong, and nearly level? If you look at their front ends, we want to see adequate strength with width between the chest and straight front legs. We also want to see a little breed character, which can be clean-cut heads, broad muzzles, and a strong jaw. Under dairy character, we're going to look at the ribs. Are they wide apart, rib bones wide, flat, deep, and slanted towards the rear? Look at the thighs. Are they lean, incurving to flat, and wide apart from the rear view? As we look at the feet and legs, again, refer to the video to see their movement. When we look at the rear leg side view, we want to see a moderate set or angle to the hock. From the rear view, we want to see their hind legs straight, wide apart, and not hocking in. We want to look at their feet. Do they have a steep foot angle, depth of their heel? And finally, as we get into size, we want to look at the stature, including the length in the leg bones, overall height at the withers. We want to see their barrows at long, deep, and wide with depth and spring of rib. Here we have the same 4 heifers again, but this time lined up side by side to give a side profile. So I'll just give you a few moments to take a few more notes. But again, this is a great view to get a good judgment of their depth of rib, their set to the hock, and any differences in size. Here we can see our 4 heifers from the rear view. As you continue making your notes, this is a great view to see any differences in rump width, chest floor width. We also might be able to make some judgments on dairiness. How sharp are they over the top? How clean and incurving are they throughout the thigh? Well, folks, the official placings are in. In this class, the official judges place them 1, 2, 3, and 4. When looking at the cuts, they found 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 to be the closest placings, with 3 over 4 being a slightly easier placing to make. So you can go back to the Dairy Youth website and view the YouTube video of this class. Here are a couple highlights of their placings and a few considerations for you to think about as you're picking out calves and how a set of official judges might view them. When looking at 1 over 2, they found 1 to be more balanced throughout with more style, particularly in the front end, wider in the front end, and more correct in the rump with a better thorough placement. Despite those advantages, they still credited 2 for having more angularity and cleanliness throughout. Moving into 2 placing over 3, 2 has more width and depth of heart, more spring of rib, and more width to her rump. The officials did grant that 3 was taller and longer and also cleaner throughout. Next, moving on to 3 over 4, 3 has more size and scale, is taller and longer from end to end, with more strength and power. They do grant that number 4 has more levelness from hips to pins and more openness of rib. So in this particular class, 4 was at a disadvantage for being that much smaller than the rest of the heifers in the class. We do want to emphasize, though, that the biggest heifer doesn't always win. So those attributes of having correct feet and legs, dairy character and whatnot are still important. We don't want you to just pick out the biggest heifer for the sake of being the biggest heifer. However, again, looking at this class, 4 was at a considerable disadvantage, and that's the reality of picking out fair calves. Selecting your project calf may be the beginning of your project, but it's most definitely not the end of it. While we don't have time to cover all the care and management considerations here, I did want to leave you with a few thoughts to get you started. Most importantly, regardless of the calf you start out with, your project calf is going to require work and dedication on your part, and this begins well before the first day of the fair. Just a few thoughts to get you started. Think about a good ration for your calf and adjust it over the summer. We want to maintain a good growth rate on your project calves, but not get them over fat either. Brush and wash your calves regularly. And if you're old enough, practice clipping on your calves before they get to the fair. Training your calves. This includes tying them up, getting them used to being petted in human contact, and lots of practice leading them around the yard. Finally, present your calf to the best of your ability. If you have further questions about the 4-H Youth Dairy Project in Pierce, Polk, or St. Croix counties, please contact myself, Eileen Van Dyke and Heather Veerling for St. Croix County, Frank Ginther for Pierce County, or Eileen Van Dyke and Chuck Preisel for Polk County. Thank you.